funny. I learned a lot from when I had a book club, and we were, a very eclectic group. I'll say that, because we were all ages. I think the only similarity was most everybody had a Caribbean background,
Mhm.
and we read things that were spiritual, but also authors who touched on things through fiction.
Mhm.
So we talked about a lot of things, and there was a woman in the group who would she knew that I was an empath, and she would say it, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And she, but she knew, and because she was, so she
Yeah.
could see it. And I learned so much from those women,
Mhm.
because I think that might be what drew us together.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the the women who weren't in that space kind of fell off from the
Yeah.
group, and then the others kind of stayed together. It was
Wow.
very interesting. I miss them so much.
Oh my. Do you remember some of the things you learned just in terms of how one person might navigate versus another compared to another person?
Um, we had one woman in the group who we called her the spiritual person, you know, because she would listen to everything that we were saying about a book, and we always made her go last, because she could just pull it all together and come out with these words of wisdom,
Mhm.
and be able to talk to everybody. And she, when I had cancer the first time, I woke up one day, I was so sick from the medication, and hers was the only phone number I could remember
Mhm.
to call. And I don't know why. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I could only remember her number. I called her, and she says, "Hold on." And she went and got some spiritual readings, and she just read them to me for about
Mhm.
10 minutes. And while she was doing that, I could feel my energy
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah. Is she the person in our first conversation where you said you would talk to sometimes and you would feel you were talking to God?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She
Mhm.
was definitely connected.
Mhm.
And she could talk me off a ledge so well,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just be very calm, and
Yeah.
and all the women in the group knew her for that.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
why we made her go last, because she could calm the group down. But she was just so pleasant, and
Mhm.
you know, I
Well,
miss. Yeah.
you miss her? Do you talk to her sometimes?
She passed a few years ago,
Oh, wow.
and I really do miss her.
Uh,
Sometimes when I'm having a moment, I'm like, I wish I could talk to her,
oh,
because she would just get right to the cut to the chase, and it
mhm.
would be all
Yeah.
good after that.
Well, you can talk to her in spirit.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Wow. So what do you think God calls you to do or has called you to do in your work, given how he created you?
I've asked myself that often. you know, I think I was called to be a mom,
Mhm.
and I loved being a mom. And then when my kids grew up and they left, and now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next?
Mhm.
And so I pray on it, just asking God to show me what my next step should be.
Yeah.
And moving to Atlanta was one of those steps. And, I would tell people, yeah, I'm moving out of New York. Don't know where I'm going. Just waiting to see where I'm directed to go. And it was to come to Atlanta. And then once I was here, I had some struggles and trying to figure out, okay, what should I do? And I feel like I was guided to run for school board. And it's like, I would, you know, because it's like something so far out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, but I felt a push that this is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, Adrian, it was on a wing and a prayer that I ran for school board. I didn't know what I was doing. And I kept saying, well, you know what? God told me to do this, so I guess it'll work out. And if it doesn't, I've learned a lot. And it'll help me in whatever I'm supposed to do after this.
Have there been moments where in this journey being on the school board where you have felt this is why I'm here?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's like different reasons. One is to be the voice of the children, without getting into all of the stuff that politicians get into. I just want to be a voice for the kids. And I bring up changes, which are very hard to push through, because I think that's what would benefit the kids. And I also found that having this position gave me a voice that I felt I wasn't using. It's a work in progress because I struggle to speak my mind when I'm in public, because I worry about what other people will think, or that I'll say something that's offensive, or people will judge me and whatnot. So I'm trying to move past that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely understand. I think it can be so deep that, because I can experience that, even though I think people might think otherwise, about me. But I know that there have been times where, and I might be just in a work meeting. I remember like many years ago, I would be in a work meeting and something would come up controversial in the meeting, and I would want to speak on it. And suddenly my mouth is crazy dry. Like I can't dare speak because, or I remember being in a virtual interview during the pandemic, and I just did not like the way I was being asked questions, and my mouth just got so dry. I had to literally say, give me a second. I have to get some water, because I was out of water. And then also I call it my, that for me, that's about my throat chakra, because what will come up also is, having to clear my throat. All of a sudden I have to cough a lot of times. So it's just how that can seep into, body and our cells, at least mine, is fascinating to me.
Yeah, because that's your communication chakra. And I struggled with that when I started on the board. Even before I started on the board, speaking in public, my voice would shake. And I didn't know how to stop it. And it was anxiety, but it's also, I guess, not being comfortable with my voice, with, that what I have to say is important.
Yeah.
Because I was shut down a lot.
Yep.
As a kid. So now when I'm in public, oh my gosh.
Yeah. 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 And I've mentioned this before. It's so remarkable to me how you have created this community, because the very first time I met you was at an event, and I was, just able to see, all the different people coming up to you
Mhm.
to say hello, people who, who live in the community,
Yeah.
of all ages. And, to move to a new city and land where you landed, in a particular community, and
Mhm.
then what this community has, how you've connected with the community, as a resident, as a school board member, yeah, as a mentor, I'm sure, for people. It's just
Isn't it amazing? I think about that sometimes. I'm like, you know what? You moved here like not knowing anybody, and you're on a school board. You got elected to a school board. Nobody knew who I was.
yes.
It's like I fell out of the sky. and,
Yes.
and I had I didn't think I was going to win that election at all. But I had the experience, and I feel like it was good to have that experience. So
Right.
when I won, I was like, oh, this is what God wants me to do.
Mhm. Mm. Well, rewind for a second and share with people how you worked in the school system, in the public school system in New York.
Yes, I worked as a school psychologist with New York City Public Schools for 28 years. And I I retired early because I had been bullied at work for 5 years. And it was during, like, at that end time that I got cancer the second time,
Mm.
because I had been bullied so much at work. And I believe it was the stress and, not being able to fight for myself that brought that on again. And then I said, once I retired, and I retired, I woke up the day before my birthday, and I had had the surgery, the mastectomy. I was laying in bed, and I was like, you know what? I'm out. And I just, because I could retire, I could get my full pension. I'm like, I am out. This is it. And so that was Monday.
Yeah.
By Friday, all my papers were in, and I was out.
Oh my gosh.
And didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know. I didn't know how I was going to live. I didn't know that I wouldn't get my full pension for at least 6 months. So I was
Mhm.
living on like not even half of my salary and having to pay mortgage and whatnot. So I said, okay, so time to move. And I didn't know where I was going to go.
And I know New York is expensive.
Yes.
Atlanta's not cheap either.
It's not cheap, but it's not New York. New York is crazy. And so I knew I couldn't manage my house anymore. So I moved down here. I had a couple of friends here, and they said, well, come down to Atlanta and rent an apartment, see how you like it. If you don't like it, you can go someplace else.
Right. Right.
And so I don't know, I fell into meeting some really fun and welcoming people
Mhm.
when I moved here. And I didn't want to go back to working in a school because I didn't want to test any more kids. And so, and I couldn't work because I had to get my license here. So that took a little while for me to take the licensing exam and get my certification here. So I worked at
Oh, right. Jared Jewelers.
Jared Jewelers, because I decided, oh, I like jewelry. I'll work at Jared. That was bad. It was a bad mistake because retail is not my thing. Because,
Mhm.
and I think it has to do with who I am, that retail wasn't right for me, because
Mhm.
what they tell you and they train you is to upsell people.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, but these are things they don't need. They're buying gifts and
Mhm.
they don't need them. Why am I pushing to, but that's what retail is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I lasted like a couple of months. But after that, by then my pension had settled in and
Mhm.
I was able to survive on that. And then once I got my certification, I went back to work
Mhm.
for Fulton County. And I was a school psychologist again.
Mhm.
And the workload in Fulton County was crazy. And I couldn't do it the same way that I had done it in New York, because in New York, I was assigned to one school for most of my career. And so I got to know the kids, I got to know the families, I knew the teachers, and I couldn't do that here because it was just like psychometrics, just test the kids, write the reports, move on to the next one. So I never even really got to know the families. And that wasn't how I wanted to work, because
Mhm.
getting to know where these kids are coming from is really important to me. And so that I know how to make recommendations for them. And it wasn't that at all. And I would say to the other psychologists, how are you all working like this? Like having 100 cases for the school year. How are you doing that? And they didn't feel like they had a choice. And in a way, they didn't, because Georgia is a right to work state, there's no union.
Mhm.
I came from New York, where we had a really strong teachers union.
Mhm.
So it was just like a whole new world for me. And I said, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. I lasted like 2 years and then I quit, and I said, I'll figure out what I want to do. But it was during those 2 years that I thought about the school board.
Mhm.
I didn't know if I would do it, but I thought about, maybe there's a way to change some of this.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you know why you're so, throughout your whole career, these decades, you've been so drawn to education? Because you have skills that can transfer to other things
Mhm.
and do transfer to other things. So do you know why education has been um, your path?
I think that was in the cards for me as well. To not to be a teacher, but to be, because I when I was in college, I thought I could be a teacher and realized I can't do that, because I couldn't be in front of a classroom by myself with these little people. It was just way too much for me. And I think teaching is a gift, and I didn't have that gift. But I could help teachers, and I thought that education for our kids is so important, and I just kept moving along in that education space. I taught in college,
Mhm.
and whenever I would say I'm leaving education and I'm going to find something else, I would always go back to education, because I think, our kids just need people who believe in them, and they need to know that there is something other than, these kids who grow up in the hood and
Mhm.
think that that's all there is. And I just always want to show them something different. So I think that might be what keeps me in it. Even now, I'm thinking, okay, well, what's going to be my next chapter? And I can't think of anything that's not having to do with education.
Right, right.
So,
And your path, I think you just said, what I heard you say is you're helping students you're helping children, but in helping children, you're also helping teachers.
Yeah. And the parents. I used to tell people that I was the parent whisperer because I could get a parent to agree to let us test their kid when they were like fighting it tooth and nail.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get them to do it. So
because it was best for them, for the child.
yeah, and but what happens is nobody listens to them, because the administration, the teachers, they feel they know what's best, and they're trying to, bum rush the parents. And what you have to do is listen to them and then be able to tell them, okay, this is what you want for your child. This is how you're going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have rights, and I'm going to help you work through it so that you can be satisfied with how it all works for you. So,
yeah. Are you, from your place now as a school board member, are you able to see particular needs of children, students right now? Any common themes that you're able to glean?
it's a little harder to be on this side of education to see what the kids need, but generally I feel like the kids in the poorer areas need a lot of what I was doing in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different culture, but the kids need the same things. They need somebody who cares about them and who will work with their parents to get them what they need and to explain to their parents how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
And how they can use that to their advantage.
Yeah.
And I also, like, at this point, I want to see students get more involved in their own education. I would like to see them sit at board meetings and give their feedback on what these, people who are sitting up on the dais are making decisions on,
Mm-hmm.
because the decisions affect them.
Yeah.
So I've gone to conferences where the Georgia School Board Association has students come and speak, and these kids are amazing, and they know what they want, they know what they need, and I think as the elders, we need to help them.
Yeah.
To get there.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of students would be interested in voicing that, even if they're not one of the students who, because aren't there students sometimes on the governance council of
They're
schools?
on the governance council in the schools, but I would like to see them. I would like them to learn what it's like to be, covering the entire district.
Yeah.
So that when they're out of school, they will come back and serve on the board.
Yes.
And bring their new ideas.
Yes.
Because there need to be new ideas and new policies. And
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see that.
Yeah. And in addition, just a student who's not necessarily on the governance council, but just a student who's going to school, playing sports, whatever they're doing, but still experiencing things that could be done differently. Those voices are important. That's pretty striking to me.
Yeah, we need to hear them, and they need to know that they are that their voice is important,
Mm-hmm.
and they can get things changed, and they
Mm-hmm.
can work toward, they can listen to their peers and then do something to change what's
Right.
happening for them and get involved in their communities.